CannaCares. There are a lot of nonprofits who would never even consider being partners with the cannabis industry. And that makes sense, depending on your mission. A school, there's all kinds of groups that they would never even think that a cannabis company of any kind would be an appropriate partner. Not the case for M44. We believe that cannabis is medicine. We know that there are a lot of people who are low-income medical cannabis users who benefit from compassionate funds that are connected to licensing, where they might get 20% off. But if somebody is getting 20% off, but they can't afford the other 80%, that means they're going without. And that's what we're trying to address here. Our hope is that the cannabis industry will step up and become our partner to make sure that anybody who needs cannabis to deal with cancer symptoms and treatment issues too, side effects, will be able to have a better quality of life with reducing pain and anxiety and lack of sleep and lack of appetite and all the kinds of things that cannabis is known to be able to help with. So a lot of what we're talking about right now hinges on whether or not what we believe the cannabis industry to be turns out to be the case. And what do I mean by that? I believe that, at least for most of the people that I have seen on videos or even met in person who are running dispensaries and so forth, that they really do believe in the medicinal properties of this plant and that they want to make this available to people who need it. So we're offering the opportunity for that. How will it work? We're going to partner with corporate sponsors from the cannabis industry to help us satisfy this unmet need. We'll do this through sponsorships, and they will be at multiple tier levels. At the very top is an exclusive industry sponsorship, which is a organization-wide sponsorship rather than specific to the CannaCares program. Then we work our way down to individual sponsorships from cannabis dispensaries themselves. There were a lot of challenges with how the federal government, at least for where we are today and historically before this, classifies cannabis. And that creates problems for the cannabis industry, as we know, with banking and so forth. This is another reason why the CannaBucks program made sense, in that we did not need to move money around, and that set aside dollars are actually still at the dispensary themselves rather than giving us money. Although, to be honest with you, it also makes sense that we don't want somebody to give us a sponsorship amount financially, a cash donation, that we just turn around and then spend at the dispensary. So we will be clear that if there are times that people need cannabis that we need to give them cash, it will not be, or we will not encourage them to spend that at a dispensary that does not support our organization. We do feel that we will be able to offer a lot of marketing value to the people who do support us within the cannabis industry. It may take a little time for us to get there, but it's going to happen. And we're just hoping that the cannabis industry is going to look at this and say, we have to do this because it's the right thing, right? It is not okay for anybody to be in pain. It is not okay for somebody to be reliant on opiates if they don't have to be, or if we can reduce that reliance because of what we already know can be the outcome, meaning death for people who are taking these. So we are hoping that the cannabis industry will want to be a part of this in making the world a better place, not just for people with stage 4 cancers, but people around them, and just that nobody should live a life where they are without relief. And so, again, we believe that cannabis is medicine. One of the things that I want to mention is that because part of this presentation will be shared with people who are in the cannabis industry, we want them to understand that we actually believe that insurance should pay for medical cannabis. We believe that all of the different things about legalization and how it is classified in the federal government is a policy issue that we want to participate in. So our partners in the cannabis industry need to understand that we are not just asking for a support mechanism related to money or free product. We really are talking about a partnership that is mutually beneficial all the way around. A few more details about CannaCares. We will have a prominently displayed geolocator system to find dispensaries that support our organization. This will be available to the public at large, in addition to people who are seeking assistance through this program. We'll need to automate our systems online, given the volume of what we're talking about here. And we'll get into that in a second when we talk about our pilot project. Dispensary sponsorships will start at $6,000 and at the $10,000 levels. With both, they would include a $3,000 cash infusion, which would help support our staffing and marketing costs. The rest is what we're calling CannaBucks, which is a set-aside credit account at each dispensary. And that would be at $3,000 and at $7,000 respectively. When a dispensary runs out of its CannaBucks account for the year, their obligation to us as a sponsor is finished. However, we will reach out to them and ask if they will consider increasing that amount, especially if we have a cancer patient who would like to come to them if they had available funds. They are not obligated at this point to offer us more because the sponsorship is very defined in this regard, but they will be given the opportunity to expand their sponsorship, and we can talk about what that might mean for them in terms of additional visibility and so forth. Dispensaries that have exhausted their available CannaBucks account for the year will still show up in the geolocator system, but their name will be grayed out. And that will signal to prospective applicants that that particular dispensary does not have any available funds at that given time. When a cannabis dispensary has lapsed with their sponsorship, their name will not appear at all on the geolocator system. When a M44 member is awarded CannaCares product assistance, they will receive a letter, as will the dispensary where they are supposed to go for their product. The dispensary will then credit the M44 member's personal dispensary account with the CannaBucks award amount. We'll track what happens with the inventory, for lack of a better word, at each individual dispensary to know how much we have available to award to members at any given time. Dispensaries will also be kept up to date as to where they are with their accounting. Generally speaking, CannaCares awards will be $100 for new cannabis users, as we're not sure that they will even find that it is helpful to them. We'll offer $250 for those who use cannabis products regularly. And we may make some exceptions for costly products such as RSO. And if you're not familiar with what that is, that's Rick Simpson oil. We may, for something like that, because it is costly, involve our rapid response program with that, because we don't want to use up CannaBucks monies for things that are more costly and not be able to accommodate more patients. And now I'll tell you a little bit about the CannaCares pilot project. The CannaCares pilot project is ideally going to start in 2024, and that will depend on the interest we get from the cannabis industry. We'd be surprised if they don't find this appealing, but we are about to find out. We will start in Maryland, DC, Northern Virginia, and West Virginia. As we test this program and tweak it, and then gear for expansion, this particular region will then move to also include all of Virginia, Delaware, and the Philadelphia area. After this, we will look at the greater New York City area to include Boston and all of New England. We will also be looking at California probably at the same time, which may be a standalone region in itself because we have Los Angeles and then the Bay Area and lots of places throughout. As you can see from this slide, we have 101 dispensaries currently in Maryland, 6 in the District of Columbia, 5 in Northern Virginia, and 48 in West Virginia. Combined, we're talking about being able to potentially help almost 2,000 people with stage 4 cancer in a given year based on a model where every dispensary says, sign me up. Now, will they all do that? Well, I hope so. But if they don't, this is still the goal we're looking for in the long term, that everybody will decide that this is something that they want to participate in. The cash infusion end of this is going to seed not only the staffing we need to make this happen, but also the marketing so that people know about us and they know about the dispensaries and other cannabis industry sponsors that are supporting our organization and our community. For every $3,000 CannaBuck sponsorship, that would serve 12 people. And every $7,000 CannaBucks sponsorship would serve 28. That seems like a very reasonable thing to ask of an individual sponsor at the dispensary level. We hope they will agree with us on that. I want to mention that the $250 that we're talking about for a general award for a cannabis user with stage 4 cancer, we're not going to say that people who are applying for help through this program will only get one award per year, because it really depends on their need. Some people might go through $250 of cannabis product in 3 months, maybe even less. So ideally, we're able to reach a lot of people, but we want to have what we're doing to be at a meaningful level for people who most need it. We're talking a lot about CannaCares right now in a lot of detail because it is the program that is ready to launch the quickest. And any additional funding that we bring in through sponsorships in this program will be supporting our Rapid Response Emergency Relief Fund. So we have a lot riding on this particular program, and we're hoping it turns out in the way that we're hoping. Yeah, we have big dreams. A lot of what we want to do is riding on the CannaCares program right now.